Every dog has a day, and since I'm a big dog, I've got 2 days. So now, let me just close up. Yeah, I'm a dog. Yeah, I'm a big dog. Big. Don't worry about what I call myself. What I am.
And welcome back, everyone, to this episode of Betting the Grid, part of the Better Than Nothing universe. I am your host, Jack, with my co-host.
I'm Pat.
It is Pat, and this is also our first ever recording where we're videotaping as well. We're going to talk about that kind of at the end of the episode, but we may be on YouTube here going forward. So just before we kick things off, as always, I have to read our disclosure. We are not in any way, shape, or form offering financial advice. Everything we share is speculation and opinion. Check your individual state laws to see if sports betting is legal or what options there are in your specific state. If anyone you know is addicted to gambling, call the National Council on Gambling at 1-800-522-4700. Their info will be on our show notes. As always, our lines are taken from BetMGM as per September 28th. 2022. Pat, good to be back in the studio with you. How have you been?
Been great. Always great to get back in the saddle.
I know, it's been kind of fun these last 2 weeks, kind of having a step back from racing. That kind of the gauntlet, those 3 races back to back to back. I feel like took a lot out of me as a fan. The early wake-up calls and everything, being in the United States here. So really excited to get back into it with a now funky race.
Just shows you how much you missed it.
It really does, and we have a kind of fun racing night as well. We're gonna try our hand at a little co-op Singapore and see how that goes. But I expect a DNF from at least one of us.
That'll be brutal.
So just to start on this episode, I think just because it's been about 2 weeks since our last one, we want to talk about some major news that has come out of the world of F1 before we kind of hop into the betting aspect. So, Pat, what's been kind of your favorite story over the last 2 weeks?
It's a heartbreaker. Nicholas Latifi leaving Williams.
Oof, that's a tough one to hear. He's been there 3 years,
give or take. His performance has just been too bad, and the money finally was not enough to keep him around.
There's been a running joke. He'll be forever goated because of that purple sector.
It's true.
He had one purple sector, so that really just goes to show the lasting impact he's had on the sport.
Always remember FP3 in Hungary.
So for me, I'm gonna go with maybe a bit of a wild card here, but Zhou Guanyu actually getting to stay at Alfa Romeo. He's I think done very well this season, giving the car is kind of garbage. So that's not really his fault, and I think he's put up some good numbers. He got in the points last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago. So that was great to see there. So good to see him. Is Bottas contracted for?
Bottas is locked up for next year. The Alfa Romeo keeping the same squad for next year.
Oh, I like to see it. Love to see Bottas in that white and red.
Oh yeah.
Another fun thing. I don't know if you saw in the Twitter sphere, but been the 10-year anniversary since the announcement of Lewis Hamilton moving from McLaren, where he got his first World Drivers' Championship, to the somewhat mid-tier Mercedes.
Yeah, no, it was a big shakeup at the time. The McLaren had been dominant for a long time. Mercedes was I don't want to say a newcomer whenever they switched from Brawn, but it was still a bit of a wild card.
I like it. I saw a fun fact. McLaren has won 1 race since Lewis Hamilton has left. And who won that race?
Danny Boy.
The honey badger himself, Danny Ricciardo. And so that leads me to my last point of the major news stories, is that Daniel Ricciardo still doesn't have a home for next year, and it is just very sad.
If you don't have Vettel or Ricciardo in the next season, it's just going to be so sad.
It's really, I think, maybe a changing of the tide. Obviously, we still have some of the greats in there. Obviously, Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton in there. But not really that, I guess, kind of the more older homage of, the Vettel with Red Bull and then,
It's a young man's game right now. Like, you lost Kimi last year. A lot of those old, familiar faces are just gone right now. So, bit of a shakeup on the grid next year. Not seeing some of those mainstays.
Oh, yeah. But we'll certainly make it for an interesting season when we have some new faces.
No, for sure.
So very much looking forward to that. All right, now on to the betting aspect. So one thing that we want to try to do is, it's hard to just pick Verstappen, and I know we said that on the last 2 podcasts, and so we haven't, but that also means we're both 0-2 in picking race winners. So we're going to try our luck at free practice and qualifying, because that's totally better than betting the actual race. So Pat, for the Singapore pre-practice, who's your pick for it?
Give me something crazy. I gave Vettel his praises about how he's a historic winner at the track. Anything can happen in FP1. Give me Vettel for something wild.
Dude, Vettel isn't gonna get out of. All right, okay. Free practice, yes. I'm thinking quality. I'm like, he won't get out.
I would not.
He
make
will
that.
not get out
that
of.
one is ill advised. Free practice though, why not?
That is fair. So for this one, I'm going to go with George Russell in the Mercedes. I just think he's very quick, always at the top of the pack. With free practice, historically we never see Verstappen really get a dub there, and then we'll talk about that in qualifying as well. But I just think, he's got the pace. I think he's really trying to prove himself in the Mercedes, because I don't know if you saw, Lewis Hamilton actually came out and said when they were doing some interviews that he's going to essentially put the pedal to the metal for these last races and really try to cement himself, in a pretty good, drivers' championship standings at least.
I like it.
So I think that's also going to fuel George, and I think Toto is going to let them battle. So I think George is really going to try to find his pace. Unfortunately, that can mean maybe a wall or 2, but we'll see.
Yeah, risk reward.
I like it. So all right, now on to qualifying, where you can't throw out Vettel. Not that I don't want to see Vettel get it. It's just the Aston Martin is incredibly slow, but Lance Stroll somehow always in the points.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. In the race time, that car kind of comes alive. In qualifying, it's very dead. But free practice, it's kind of hit or miss. So that car, I don't really know what they're doing over there at Aston Martin, but something wacky could happen.
So I've been doing zero research on Aston Martin, so, take this with a grain of salt. But I'm convinced that all of Daddy Stroll's money is just going immediately into Lance's car, and Vettel is getting B spec or even C spec as the season progresses, because there's just absolutely no place for Vettel. And I still believe he has, he still has it in him.
Yeah.
But, it's just the car is lacking so much. He's hanging out in the back with his good friend Mick Schumacher.
Yeah, no data to support it, but very plausible.
So on to qualifying. Who do you got?
Quali, that's a tough one, and obviously you don't want to pick Verstappen, but give me Leclerc in qualifying. No, it's only your second best odds at plus 200, but Leclerc's quick. He's gotten a win here before. Why not?
Oh, also, just to go back, George Russell was plus 800, and then I believe you already said Vettel at plus 20,000 for those free practice 1 bets. Yeah, so for qualifying, you got Charles Leclerc at plus 200. I really like it. So I am going to go with Lewis Hamilton at plus 800 because of the comments he made. I think he is going, there is no type of leash on him this year. I think he's going to just go full throttle. He is now fully competing against his teammate, which, Mercedes back in the day, Bottas, other than that one time where he basically told the pit crew to F right off on fastest lap. I think we're going to see a different beast from him now that it's not the leader of the pack.
Poor Valtteri. Valtteri let Lewis through.
Yeah, Valtteri, please let Lewis through. Oh my gosh. So those are just our quick little free practice and qualifying bets, just to give you a little flavor of what we're kind of thinking. Now, I wanted to just do a quick recap on our race winners that we had for last week. So,
I took Jack's quali winner to win the race overall. I took Hamilton. He's sitting at plus 800 right now, which I still think it's a good bet. The Mercedes hasn't been the quickest in straights. But Singapore, you don't really have that problem. There's not too many long straights that the Red Bull kind of thrives on, so I still think it's a solid pick.
I like it. Obviously picked him for quali. But I will say, so Lewis Hamilton is plus 800. Back on the original, or on the other Singapore episode we did, he was actually plus 1,000. So those odds, it seems like bettors are putting a little more money on him as well. And I'm also going to stick with my kind of original, Carlos Sainz.
Nice.
I think he really, has he seen first place yet?
Silverstone, he got his first win.
Yeah, so he finally got his first win. He's tasted that victory. I think he has it. And much like Lewis Hamilton going a little up in odds, Carlos Sainz he's now plus 1,000, and he was originally plus 1,100. So just a little boost in odds there. I know we had some wild cards. Y'all can listen to the other episode if you want to hear us talk about some wild favorites of Lando Norris and Fernando Alonso.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Pat. So now I want to kind of move on to some special bets. Picking the race winner is always difficult, especially given the cars and how fast they are relative to each other. So I want to hear your thoughts on one of our points in the last episode. If you may remember, we talked about DNFs, and DNFs are not a fun aspect of the sport. We very much do not root for them, but they do happen a lot of times because of just engine failure and the potential blackout spot on the track.
It could happen.
Any other update? I've been looking at the news and no one's mentioned it.
Not yet.
Not yet.
They're keeping it underground.
Okay, yeah, they're trying to hush those rumors.
Don't listen to everything the media tells you.
So we both picked. I respectively picked 5 DNFs. Pat respectively picked 4. So BetMGM actually had odds on cars to be classified at the end result, essentially saying how many DNFs there will be. And the best lines are actually exactly what we set, over under 15.5. So either 4 or 5 plus odds. So Pat, you had the over. What are your thoughts on those odds?
Life's too short to bet the under. Minus 135, take the over.
Wow. Okay. I mean, certainly don't want to see DNFs, but under at 15.5 at plus 100 certainly gives me kind of a good feeling, though, because as you mentioned, there's not as many straights, a lot of room for error. They just went from a track with, I believe, 13 turns to now it's 23.
Yeah.
So you're increasing the turns. There are some very tricky parts of the track, especially that first turn right if you come off the line. Mm-hmm. There's a nice little curve into a very sharp, it's almost a 270-degree turn. Mm-hmm. So I just think we may have run into some issues.
No, it's a city circuit. Walls are not forgiving to Formula One cars. It's possible.
Exactly.
Never out the realm of possibilities.
You and I in F1, the video game, have damage off because we suck. Mm-hmm. And so that just goes to show that these guys are the margin for error is a lot less than our shitty little setups.
I regret nothing.
Perfect. So now on to winning race margin. I thought it'd be kind of fun to maybe look at just some different things, more like over under type bets. Something where you can put $10, you win back 9, you win back 7. Actually some bang for your buck. Whereas if you bet Verstappen, you bet 10, you only win back about 6. So a little bit more fun here. So really what I'm looking at is the winning margin for the race. Basically, it's from 0 seconds to basically 6 seconds is going to be the under, and then the over is 6 or more seconds for margin of victory. So, Pat, what are your thoughts here, especially regarding maybe the last race and the winning margins? What are you thinking?
It's a tough call. Basically, it's going to come down to will there be a safety car or not at the end. So Monza, like we talked about, there was a safety car and the winning margin was 2.6 seconds. But if you don't think there's going to be a safety car, I think the over 6 seconds is a pretty safe bet.
I like it. I'm looking at the last race results, and it was Sebastian Vettel taking the first one back in 2019, followed by Charles Leclerc, also in the Ferrari, and that was just a plus 2.6 seconds. So it was a very tight race. In that one, obviously both 2 Ferraris, but yeah, I'm thinking the over. As much as I am taking the DNFs to happen, I think once we get to that point in the race, as much as there is the fatigue, and obviously all these drivers have been training for the heat and the stress that they're going to be under. I just think that at that point, depending on what position you're in, I think the race standings are going to be a bit set.
Yeah.
So I'd be very surprised to see something like that happen. And I'm hedging my emotions because if Max or Charles does win by that much, it's not a very stressful ending. But if it's close, hey, then we have something to really cheer for at the end.
It's true.
So maybe a silver lining there. So, Pat, you added in this last special bet. So I kind of want to hear your thoughts on it and, maybe what's the deal?
Well, you see, we've been talking about it. Betting on Verstappen it's so boring. So if you're going to bet on Verstappen, you got to add in some crazy twists to it. So the bet I like, it's plus 1,000 odds. It's Verstappen to win by more than 10 seconds, have the fastest lap, and Red Bull to have the fastest pit stop. So if you're going to bet on Verstappen, have some fun with it. See what the pit stops are going. It makes everything more exciting. And plus 1,000, not terrible, because you gotta think Max can get 2 of those pretty easily.
I think I will be putting 2 units on that.
Nice.
Yeah, my units are $5 because I'm not rich. What are your units?
$5 because I am also not rich.
Fantastic. You heard it here. All right. Well, that essentially wraps us up on our bets. You know, we already did kind of a bit of a outline for the race in our last episode. So make sure you check that out if you haven't to hear just more kind of our inside thoughts on this race. And then our final note is that we are, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, we're recording this one via camera. So we are actually going to be producing some video content now that, you know, highlighting certain sections of the podcast. And that's going to be on the Better Than Nothing YouTube channel. So that link will also be in our Spotify, as well as I'm sure we'll throw it out on, you know, Instagram and stuff like that. So thank you all very much. Pat, any final words?
Lights out and away we go.
Lights out and away we go. Just one more cringy thing we can always say. I didn't do the starting, the starting one.
Not enough cringe this episode. Got to throw some in there.
I like it. All right. Well, thank you for sticking on this long. This is Betting the Grid with your hosts, Jack and Pat. Tune in next time for a Singapore recap.
You have nothing to do with the skill, Bayless. As I was saying to it, Taylor, every dog has a day, and since I'm a big dog, I've got 2 days. So now, you just close up. Yeah, I'm a dog, y'all a big dog. Big. Don't worry about what I call myself. What I answer. You have nothing to do with the skill, Bayless. As I was saying to it, Taylor, every dog has a day, and since I'm a big dog, I've got 2 days. So now, you just close up. Yeah, I'm a dog.